Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about the ethical scenarios from the book of Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Um, so let's first off start talking about the scene where Montag first steals books and hides them behind a ventilator. So here I believe that Montag is justified because um for example, in where it says the woman the other night, I talked to her, and men like Beatty are afraid of her. I can't understand it, but why would they be so afraid of someone like her? Um, just to give some context, Montag is basically just recalling a scene where like of the woman burning with her books in the in Fahrenheit 451, and he's basically explaining this to Mildred. Um, and so here Montag is essentially just inquiring, like, what would make like the government officials, um, like Beatty like so afraid, and like what would make like since a woman burning her books is so like significant, why would that make people like Beatty so afraid? Um, and so Montag just he steals these books to try and learn more about like what makes these books so powerful, what makes these books so important that they would make government officials such as such as Beatty so like afraid of people of people like the woman who was burning with her books. Um, he also says like later in the book, he also says that there must be something in those books, things that we can't imagine, to make a woman stay in a burning house. There must be something there. You don't stay for nothing. So basically, Montag is just trying to explain to Mildred again that there is some like importance, some potential in these books, such that they would make like a woman like stay in her house and die like with her books, even when they were burnt. So he's saying that some books have some meaning, books have some significance that they would cause such an event to happen where a woman would, again, like burn herself, like burned with her books. So because of this, Montag is trying to get to the actual crux, like the actual core of the situation, and try to truly understand, like, do books actually have like some like importance or some meaning behind them? Um, and there's also like various like nonfiction support that explains this. So he also says like Thoreau also explains that whenever there is unrighteousness, um, whenever there's unrighteousness and it's supported by like a government law, then revolt is required. And since Montag does have valid suspicion, since like he saw that people like Beatty were so affected by um, the woman burning with her books, so he has valid suspicion that like books have some power, and the government is trying to suppress this power of books through obviously like through burning the books and governmental law. So through this, Montag is essentially just trying to understand like what power, like what potency do books have, and whether or not they have like some meaning or some significance in society. And he tries to understand, okay, like he tries to understand why would a government try to like suppress like learning and knowledge like of books through books, and by like burning them. So yeah, like so like basically he's just Montag is just trying to explain like what is the power of books, and like um why like how do books, like what is the significance of books such that they would cause such like extreme actions where a woman would die with her books instead of just evading the situation. So through that, because of that, Montag essentially just steals the books and hides them behind a ventilator to study them more and try to understand why books are so important. So I believe this action is justified because Montag is essentially just trying to understand, like this is normal first off, this is like normal human curiosity, and this is valid curiosity that Montag has, that he is trying to understand like what about these books makes them so special that they would have to be burnt uh, by obviously like government officials, and why they would have such what would make these books so important that a woman would like burn with her books. So yeah, I believe Montag is justified because of that, since it's like obviously like just like a valid curiosity that he has to understand like what makes these books so powerful. Um, so moving on, another scene is when Beatty visits Montag to scare Montag into returning into his job. So the question is like, is Beatty justified? And I believe that Beatty is not justified for this, because like Beatty mainly uses like various like mostly like psychological warfare to basically like kind of like make Montag worried and make him like basically make him stay on the line of like that conduct of governmental conduct and conformity. And like he also mainly just tries to like demean books and try to explain, okay, like why books are like horrible for society. So for example, in on Bradbury in page 59, he basically says that books say nothing, nothing you can teach or believe. They're about non-existent people, figments of imagination. He later also says like a professor calling another an idiot, one philosopher screaming down another's gullet, all of them running around, putting out the stars and extinguishing the sun. You can come way lost. So he's basically just addressing how Montag is, after being so deeply affected by the woman burning with her books, okay, Montag begins to be so curious, and as a result of that, Beatty is trying to basically just scare Montag, because he also understands that Montag was so deeply affected by the woman burning. So he has suspicion that Montag is going to like further like look into books and try to rebel. So basically, through this quote, Beatty's trying to convince Montag that books are meaningless, they don't have any meaning, and that he shouldn't like further investigate them in order to truly understand what books are. And I believe that this is like very much unjustified, because Beatty is just trying to like make sure that Montag stays in the line of conformity, and obviously like the social conduct at the time, and basically suppress any ideas of like rebellion or trying to understand like what books have, like what the potency of books. So since obviously books are obviously a source of knowledge, they're obviously a source of intellectual growth, intellectual like ideas, and by trying to basically like scare or force Montag to stay on that line of conformity and not look into books, he's trying to essentially suppress any idea of trying to improve this intellectual growth. And I believe this is morally wrong, since intellectual growth is like intellect, and having like a freedom and access to knowledge is an extremely important factor, and like to like one's moral well-being. So also later along in the book, Beatty also uses his various like extensive knowledge of books, since he's also read books, to basically like confuse and taunt Montag. So like by reciting like various like quotes from various authors that Montag isn't really truly able to understand, Beatty essentially tries to like basically confuse and taunt Montag, and basically like essentially convey that books are not basically worth reading, books are not worth like the effort to read and like understand, and that intellectual, and he also tries to explain that like intellectual knowledge, all these books are always contradictory, and they always create like dissent and chaos and discord in society. So through this Beatty just trying to brainwash Montag into believing that books are like an enemy, and basically trying to like harm society, and that they have and he's trying to basically maintain this idea of social order and intellectual stagnation by basically like trying to suppress any idea of understanding or reading books. So yeah, I believe that this is heavily like unjustified, and since like books obviously are always a source of knowledge, and one key moral factor is obviously reading books, since books are obviously like access to knowledge is obviously a very important part of like ethics and morals. So like even though it causes like basically like intellectual diversity, that still shouldn't be suppressed by society. And so Beatty is essentially doing wrong here by trying to suppress this idea of like reading books, and trying to basically like try to force and like not like indirectly force Montag to basically stay on the line of conduct, and not like and continue his job of basically like suppressing knowledge by burning books. And this is also supported by like other authors, since Thoreau again also explains that a government is best when it governs the least. And like here, when Beatty like is speaking to Montag and trying to scare him, he's basically trying to maintain this government dominance and social order by preventing Montag from like rebelling, like having thoughts of rebellion, or by like looking into like books as basically an action of rebellion. So through this, Beatty is trying to basically maintain this governance and this social order that the government instills on society. Um, so yeah, this obviously contrasts with Thoreau's idea that like government should not be um, like governing too much essentially, and like it should be basically like governing the least as possible. So yeah, this obviously conflicts with Thoreau's ideas. Um, so yeah, although like another like a counter argument would say that like Beatty simply trying to just maintain the social order, trying to not like stir up any like chaos or spark any like dissent in society. Okay, since if you read books, oftentimes books have various different opinions, and that can create like diversity in opinion and thoughts, like so intellectual diversity. So because of that, like Beatty is essentially just trying to like by trying to scare Montag into not looking into books and trying to like understand like the various opinions in books and things like that. He's trying to just essentially maintain the social order. I believe this counter argument is obviously wrong because having this intellectual diversity is a key factor of humanity, and it allows humans, and that's actually what makes humans very diverse, is that like our intellectual like differences, our different understandings and opinions on the world and world like on various issues is what makes us unique. And by stripping people away of this diversity, by establishing like a sense of conformity and suppression of intellectual like knowledge, and obviously like then again diversity, that creates this that's like obviously unethical, and it's like it strips a person's like it strips a person of their individuality. So here it is important to rebel essentially in order to preserve this intellectual diversity and therefore uphold various moral values. So moving on, in the next scenario, Montag decides to visit Faber about his frustration in life. So like at this point, so is Montag essentially justified? So I believe that Montag is definitely justified because for example, in Bradbury, like in on page 79, it says that, so now Montag basically says to Bradbury, sorry, no, Faber says to Montag, so now do you see why books are hated and feared? They show the pores in the face of life. So he's basically trying to explain that books are like books basically show the pores, like they give this intellectual depth, they give this like true meaning behind life, and they open the ideas into looking into the world at a deeper level, looking into problems at a deeper level, and not at just some superficial or artificial way. So through this, Montag is actually able to get more understanding of his knowledge by basically complaining to Faber about his life. He's basically saying he gets an insight to why books are so important, because of Faber's obvious knowledge of why books are important. Like what is the power of books? Montag is actually also able to learn like why does the government oppress? Why does the government suppress this intellectual knowledge? Why does the government support the burning of books? And it is so that there's just this uniformity in the society, and that people don't look into life at a deeper level, and that stirs up like various different like things such as like dissent and things like and diversity. So yeah, so basically like Montag is just trying to explain why Faber's just like through Montag explaining to Faber about his frustration, Montag gets an insight to does why does the government just like try to always destroy books? What power do books hold that they would have to be destroyed by the government and things like that? So also like from later in the scene, I will Faber also like later on when Montag is running from the authorities after they discover that he was hiding books, he goes to Faber's house, and Faber also tells Montag that he's gonna take the 5 a.m. bus to St. Louis, and so yeah, Faber was just out of the country, out of the city. So and also like we know that later in the book, the city is just completely bombed, and I don't think anyone survives. So since Montag decides to explain Faber about his frustration, Faber becomes more and more involved in Montag's in Montag's plan to essentially rebel, and they together, since Faber is more involved, then he is able to actually escape to avoid getting caught by authorities as an accomplice of Montag, and essentially he's able to escape the city. Okay, before the scene of the bombing, and then the entire city is destroyed. So if Montag did not come and explain his frustration, then there would have been no no real relationship between Montag and Faber, and as a result, Faber would not have partook in this plan of rebellion, and therefore he likely would have been stayed in his house at the time of the bombing, and then would have most likely died. So, by actually deciding to visit Faber, Montag indirectly actually saves Faber's life by being able to help Faber actually escape the city, to obviously prevent him from being caught as an accomplice of Montag during the whole rebellion. So yeah, so basically Montag telling Faber about his frustration allows Faber to indirectly allows Faber to basically save his life. This is also seen in various other authors and various noble people. For example, Martin Luther King, he also through various letters and various speeches, he tried to basically rally various African Americans and various other people to try and to join his cause and join his movement of ending racial prejudice. So Martin Luther King, through this, he described his frustration of the current situations of racial prejudice in the world. Sorry, and to attract more African Americans, he basically displayed his frustration. He explained what was happening to African Americans, and through that he was actually able to attract more African Americans towards the cause, various other people as well, and basically altogether more people were able to join the civil rights movement to help end racial prejudice. So this actually also coincides with Montag's explanation of his frustration, since King described his frustration for the racial prejudice in society, many other people were able to join. Just like how when Montag to join his rebellion against society, just like how Montag decides to just tell Faber about his frustration, that also allows Faber to become more involved, and that helps him support this rebellion against society. So yeah, also Faber actually before the book, Faber has often been very shy, but then often very shy, very he's often kept a low profile, but since, and he's always he's never been felt truly alive, truly happy. But since he was with Montag, and he partook in this basically a rebellion with Montag, he has felt much more at peace, much more alive. So it shows how this Montag actually this rebellion. So since Montag explained his frustration, and that resulted in Faber's involvement in the rebellion, that allowed Faber to actually his morale and his personality was uplifted. He became much more alive, essentially. So yeah, also what I think this rebellion was obviously I believe that this proves that rebellion is justified when the government tries to censor expression or intellectual depth, or and tries to basically maintain the superficiality and artificiality. In these cases, in order to destroy this superficial and artificial nature of society, and actually instill a life of intellectual depth and meaning, there needs to be rebellion. So yeah, moving on. So in the next scenario, Montag decides to plant books in firemen houses. So are Montag and Faber justified for doing this? So I believe that they are justified for doing this, because the firemen that they were obviously that they decided to plant books in, they partook in very they just blindly followed rules of the government, and basically wanted to basically just supported these government ideas of um like the suppression of intellectual growth. Like for example, on page 123, Montag is at is at like Miss Black's house, which is who is the Miss Black is the husband of Mr. Black, who is a fireman. He basically explains he basically says, Miss Black, are you asleep in there? Isn't your is this isn't good, but your husband did it to others and never asked and never wondered and never worried. Now since you're a fireman's wife, it's your house it's your house and your turn. So when he says like your husband did it to others, he's basically saying that his husband burned the houses of people who possessed books, who possessed books. And in order to essentially deliver the systemic justice, Montag does decide to plant books in his firemen houses so that they would be falsely accused of getting so that the firemen would be falsely accused of having like books in their houses, and obviously their houses would be burnt and they would be persecuted. So I believe that this is still justified though, because um, blacks upheld a corrupt system where like the books were burned, and he never stopped to question like why are we burning books, like what is the purpose of burning books. And he just blindly followed the rules and the duties he was given without any true understanding, without any true questioning of why he was committing such like immoral action. So this shows how he just simply blindly conformed and blindly followed these social standard and governmental rules. Um, yeah, and basically remained apathetic to the. He also remained apathetic to the people whose houses were burned, since like he did not really care, he did not really care or show any worry or any like questioning of why they were even burning their houses in the first place. So he was just apathetic, and he just constantly upheld the unjust law. So therefore, Mr. Black, the Black is like Fireman Black is obviously at fault here as well for simply blindly following and supporting these unjust rules of society. So like here Montag is just simply just delivering this justice to Black, and basically like the systemic justice to show like since Black did commit a misdeed, that all the other firemen did commit a misdeed. So Montag is essentially just trying to serve this justice towards them. Also, during the especially it's also seen during the burning of the elderly woman's house. Like they were they were pouring kerosene out. All the firemen were pouring kerosene out. They were throwing books off the shelf. This is obviously very this is obviously very terrible, since they're simply just blindly following the rules. They're never questioning why are they pouring kerosene on books, why are they why are they trying to destroy books. Like they show no like care or any concern for that, and they're simply just blindly following rules of the society and like what BIDS told them to do. So without any like questioning, like they just conform to society and the government laws. So Montag is essentially just serving this justice by planting books, and then they would be persecuted for that. So this is also supported by various authors such as Thoreau. So Thoreau explains that it's not a man's duty, as a matter of course, to devote himself to the eradication of any, even the most enormous wrong, but it is his duty at least to wash his hands from it and not to give it practically his support. So basically, like he's basically saying that Thoreau is basically trying to convey that although like a person does not have to devote his life to just completely ending like any unrighteousness or anything like that, he cannot it is the moral duty of a person not to promote unrighteousness and like not to support any wrongdoing or things like that. And Black was essentially, by conforming to the government, blindly conforming to the corrupt government system, this is still an act of injustice. He is basically support giving his by burning the books. He is giving his support for this injustice. And therefore, Black is obviously supporting this unrighteousness, which contradicts and contrasts with Thoreau's thoughts. So that would why that's why I believe that um, that these firemen are like Montag's decision to actually burn these to plant books in these firemen's houses. This is actually justified, since Montag is simply just trying to serve justice towards them for doing such evil misdeeds of following a corrupt government system. So also Montag, so in the next scenario, Montag reads books and poems to Mildred's friends. So like is this so we're just like asking if this is justified. So um like since Faber has like a beetle or like some device that he uses to communicate with Montag during this scene, um he's Montag is like basically trying to like bring out a book and basically trying to have the like has the urge to read these books to these conformists. This like Mildred's friends are obviously conformist to society. They don't stop to question like if this is and stop to question the reality, try to actually have some any intellectual depth. They just simply just blindly follow and they conform to society. So Montag is trying to basically read to them. Montag, like in this quote, he says that he's trying to scare the hell out of them, scare the living daylights out. So through this, Montag is saying that he's trying to read these books to essentially like warn these women, like Mildred and her friends, about like why is like what they're doing wrong. Like, why are they not questioning the reality? Why are they just simply conforming? And make them truly understand that the society they live in is full of superficiality and artificiality, and they should actually look towards intellectual depth. Yeah, essentially, and they're also being like controlled, essentially, like indirectly controlled by society through like the parlor walls, through like this addiction to the parlor walls, and basically like through their conformity to the government. Um, so yeah. Um, so Montag is just trying to read these books to actually warn them, try to make them recognize and realize the superficiality and the artificial nature of their lives, and try to truly um, understand that there's more beyond the superficial happiness, and that there's more profound, like there's a more profound and meaningful engagement in like life. So also like so basically he's just trying to basically change their Mildred and her friend's mindset by reading. Also even before the book, um when the women are talking, they basically when they're, for example, when they're talking about the election, like he say that they're gonna vote for people who are more good looking. So this shows how these women try to this indicates how these women are trying to they favor um like superficial and materialistic aspects and characteristics rather than the true like profundity or like true nature of the person. Or yeah, so basically like Mildred and her friends are only like more material, like they're more interested in material gain and materialistic character rather than true depth and true like and more like profound aspects of a person's character or a person's like nature. So Montag is essentially just trying to help them recognize the superficiality and the artificial nature of their lives again, and just trying to help them like recognize that the government is just trying to maintain the sense of superficial happiness through, for example, like the parlor walls and things like that. And like he's trying to basically trying to like help Mildred and her friends look beyond the superficial nature and try to look um more in depth towards like human nature and human interaction. So yeah, also this is also seen in Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. He's also trying to he also tried to convince many to support the civil rights movement by helping them realize the oppressive nature of the government and society, and the segregation and injustice inflicted upon African Americans, and obviously all the atrocities that occurred as a result of racial prejudice. So through like this, both King and Montag are trying to basically help people realize that like what society is doing and what the government is doing is morally unjustified, morally wrong, and they must look beyond these superficial like barriers and look more into the depth of human life and things like that. So like look beyond materialism, look beyond these superficial characteristics, and actually look beyond into what is like the true meaning of life and what is the true like and meaningful human engagement with like nature and obviously like with other people as well. So yeah, basically like in summary, Montag is reading these books and poems to Mildred Stress to try and help them realize the that they are simply like living with the government's rules. They're basically essentially being indirectly controlled by the government by showing their conformity to them, and by like basically conforming to these government rules and being like for example addicted to the parlor walls. They're not able to truly grasp the nature of human life and like the true meaning of things, okay, because they're so like busy with these all these short doses of um short doses of um short doses of like pleasure and like instant gratification, that they're not able to truly understand like intellectual depth and meaningful human interaction again. So yeah, so Montag is just basically trying to help them like understand that they are not basically living, they're living in a essentially kind of like a simulation, or like kind of like a superficial society where it only instant gratification and obviously like short pleasure doses are there, rather than like true intellectual understanding and things like that. So finally, in the last scenario, Montag does kill Beatty. So is Montag justified? And I think Montag is justified here because Montag does this for many reasons for killing Beatty, but one of the main reasons he does this is because in order to save Faber's life. So during the scene when Beatty like finds out that there's books hidden in Montag is hiding books in his house, and he goes to obviously like go burn those books out of government law. Okay, Beatty hits Montag and finds the communication device that Montag and Faber were using. Montag was using to communicate with Faber, and Beatty like finds this thing and he says that he's gonna use this device to trace whoever Montag is communicating with and find him. So which is obviously Faber. So Beatty was basically like going to go kill Faber essentially, and like go like persecute and possibly kill Faber for being involved in this rebellion. So um this happened on page 112. So so in order to stop like Beatty from actually going ahead and with these plans to actually go and trace the device back to Faber and then go ahead and like persecute and possibly even kill Faber, Montag had to kill Beatty. Montag just does it to kill Beatty so that Beatty doesn't actually trace the device and find Faber. And basically in the end, Montag, when he kills Beatty, that prevents Beatty from actually trying to find Faber. And like as a result, Montag does basically save Faber and protect him from Beatty's persecution. So yeah, basically Montag just does this to help for the survival and protection of Faber. Um, Also, Montag also does this by Montag also does this to save himself, since um like first off, Beatty, like he also said that he would be like Montag would be arrested since he was holding books with him. So since he was going to be like Montag was going to be persecuted and arrested, then he would have been like, for example, possibly in like asylum or a jail. in the city. And then later on, obviously, we know that the city gets bombed. So if like Montag basically didn't kill Beatty and agreed with Beatty that he would go to and like basically like face the punishment of going to jail, then obviously he would have been there like in the city during the bombing, and then he would have most likely not have survived. So by killing Beatty and beginning to like run away, by quickly killing Beatty and making all the other like and destroying the mechanical hound and um like making the other firemen unconscious, Montag is able to escape the city and like basically able to like be on the run, quickly escape the city, and as a result, like Montag is actually able to um survive since he's not in the city anymore. Montag is able to survive when the city is bombed since he's not even in the city. So yeah, so like if had Montag not killed Beatty, then like Beatty would have most likely taken Montag in, and then he would have been like obviously arrested, and then he would have been there during the like in the city during the bombing, and he most likely would have died. But since he did kill Beatty and he was on the run, he would have basically survived. He was able to survive that bombing. So yeah, and then also Thoreau also like supports Montag's action. I believe so. Like I believe Thoreau also supports this action because um Thoreau also explains that whenever the government and its officials try to establish laws that promote injustice, it is a right to rebel against these laws. So like Beatty is by like we see obviously in the book that Beatty is constantly supporting these laws. Beatty is constantly supporting these laws and sorry, wait. Beatty is constantly supporting these laws and basically helping to promote this injustice in society where books are constantly burned and people who have books are obviously going to be like persecuted. So when so Thoreau does explain that whenever the government or and its officials try to establish and enforce these unjust laws, then rebellion is necessary. So this does align with Montag's decision to kill Beatty since like due to the fact that Beatty was supporting this injustice, then this action of rebellion of killing Beatty, like of Montag's action of killing Beatty is an act of rebellion, and this basically aligns with Thoreau's idea that one should rebel when the government tries to establish and enforce these unjust and unrighteous laws. So I believe King also explains this because King also says that it is civil duty to rebel against immoral and unjust laws. Um, so yeah, it also that also aligns with Thoreau's and also Montag's thought that like since Beatty did enforce and support these unjust laws, Montag killing Beatty was justified since he was basically like he was committing an act of rebellion against these against the people who would enforce these unjust laws, and basically this act would also weaken these unrighteous laws and immoral laws as well. So I believe like in essence that Montag killing Beatty is justified since Montag is using this to Montag kills Beatty to save Faber's life. He does it to save his own life, and he also and this also like aligns with Faber's ideas and King's ideas that whenever the government like establishes unjust laws, then these laws need to be rebelled against to preserve moral code and protect righteousness and ethics in society. Thank you for listening.